A visit to remember. My towel eventually slipped from my shoulders, falling to the floor in a soft heap. "Maria," he whispered. There was awe in his voice. His eyes, wide and filled with emotion, were fixed on me. Slowly, gently, he reached out and traced his fingers along my arm, his touch delicate, reverent, as if he were memorizing every detail of a moment that meant more to him than words could express. But this is not where our story begins. Let me start properly. Hello, dear friend. Thank you for taking a moment out of your day to join me. If you're new here, I invite you to stay, to listen, and to feel. Stories are powerful, they connect us, move us, and sometimes heal us. I hope this one will do just that for you. My name is Maria. I am 65 years old, and though it feels strange to say aloud, I have always carried beauty with me. Not just the outer kind, the soft curves of my body, the smoothness of my skin, or the thick silver waves that cascade down past my shoulders, but the kind that grows from living deeply, from loving and losing, from giving more than receiving. My eyes, a warm honey brown, have seen joy and grief alike. People say they hold a secret, a quiet invitation to listen or to lean in. Even now, when I walk through the world, I feel the lingering stares. Yet they no longer stir me like they once did. My heart has known loss, and since my husband passed many years ago, I have kept that heart guarded. Love felt like a door I could no longer bear to open. And then came Greg. Greg is my nephew, my elder sister Lucy's only son. A man in his mid-30s with a mischievous grin that can light up a room and charm that could soften even the most guarded of hearts. Tall, athletic, and self-assured, Greg always walked through life like it was his to conquer. Lucy used to call me, exasperated and half-laughing, "Maria, this boy will be the end of me. He's always chasing after someone new." I would laugh and reassure her. "He's young. Let him find his way." Still, I always sensed something deeper in him. A restlessness, maybe. A complexity he didn't show to many. Perhaps because he hadn't found the place, or person, he felt safe enough to share it with. One evening, as the sun painted the sky in soft hues of peach and lavender, my phone rang. It was Greg. "Hi, Aunt Maria," he said, his voice unusually soft. "I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Of course not," I replied warmly. "Is everything all right?" "I was wondering. Would it be okay if I came to stay with you for the weekend? I just need a little break from everything." There was a hesitation in his voice that caught my attention. Greg was not one to ask for help, much less seek refuge. Something had shaken him, though he didn't say what. I paused only for a moment before replying, "You're always welcome here, Greg. This is your home too." "Thanks, Aunt Maria," he said. His voice brightened slightly. "I'll be there by Friday evening." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, the silence of my home suddenly feeling full of questions. What was he running from? Had something happened with work, or someone? Was his heart broken? When Friday arrived, the hours seemed to melt away. By the time I heard his car pull into the driveway, my heart fluttered with both joy and concern. As I opened the door, there he stood, Greg. He looked the same, yet somehow different. His dark jeans and fitted black t-shirt hugged his frame, but it was the weariness in his eyes that struck me. His usual swagger was replaced by something quieter, more introspective. "Aunt Maria," he said, wrapping me in a tight hug. "You look amazing." I laughed softly. "And you're still as charming as ever. Come in, let's get you settled." The house welcomed him with the scent of freshly baked bread and the soft golden light from the lamps I had lit in preparation for his arrival. Yet, even in the warmth, I could sense Greg searching, for comfort, for clarity, maybe even for healing. He collapsed onto the couch with a sigh, like someone who had been holding their breath for too long. "I've really missed this place," he murmured. I smiled, teasing, "You're acting like it's been years." He leaned back, eyes closed. "It feels like it." I didn't press. "Not yet. Sometimes the heart needs time before it opens." Later, we wandered out into the garden. The stars had begun to shimmer above us, and the wind carried the scent of jasmine and roses. We sat in silence, the kind that only exists between people who love each other deeply and don't need to fill the air with words. Eventually, Greg began to speak, softly at first. About the pressures of his job, about relationships that had left him feeling more empty than full. About how he felt like he was losing sight of who he was supposed to be. "I didn't know where else to go," he said finally. "I just knew I needed somewhere that felt real." My heart ached. Not out of pity, but out of recognition. I had been there. I had known that ache. "You came to the right place," I told him. "You always have a home here. Not just this house, but in me." He looked at me then, truly looked, like he was seeing me not just as his aunt, but as a woman who had weathered her own storms and come through them still standing. We didn't need to say much more that night. The stars above bore witness to a kind of love that goes beyond romance, something deeper, more enduring. A love built on shared silences, on being a sanctuary for someone when the world feels too loud. That weekend didn't change everything, but it did shift something between us. We laughed, cooked, tended the garden. He told me stories of his childhood I had long forgotten, and I told him about the quiet griefs I had buried. We cried. We healed. Together. And maybe that's what love truly is, not just passion or grand gestures, but presence. Listening. Being there. When Greg left on Sunday evening, he hugged me tighter than before. "Thank you," he whispered. "No need to thank me," I replied. "You've always been part of my heart." And as I watched him drive away, I realized that perhaps my heart wasn't locked away after all. Maybe it had just been waiting for the right moment to open again. A shift in the silence. Eventually, Greg broke the silence. "You know, Aunt Maria," he began quietly, his tone uncharacteristically soft, "sometimes I feel trapped in a never-ending loop. The constant social gatherings, the demands to be outgoing, it all starts to feel so exhausting." His words caught me off guard. This was not the confident, carefree Greg I had always known. Here he was, his voice low and laden with vulnerability. I sensed the weight of his admission, a burden he had quietly carried for far too long. I considered his words for a moment before responding gently, "Perhaps it is time for a change, Greg." He sighed deeply, his eyes drifting toward the garden where the evening light mingled with shadows. "But it's not that simple. People have their expectations of me. It feels as though I can't stray from the path they have laid out without disappointing them." I moved closer and reached out to rest a steady hand upon his arm. "You do not need to live up to anyone else's expectations. You are still so young, and you have time to explore who you truly are and to shape your own path." For a long moment, he studied me, his eyes intense and searching, as if trying to communicate unspoken truths. There was a depth in his gaze that stirred emotions in me, reminding me of chapters in my own past I had once locked away. The weekend unfolded in a quiet, almost reflective manner. Greg, usually reserved, began to relax. In the soft cadence of our everyday conversations and the shared silences between heartbeats, I discovered layers of his true self. There were fleeting moments, subtle glances and half-smiles, that conveyed deeper sentiments than any words could capture. I found that his presence brought light into even the quiet corners of my home. Moments of comfort. One afternoon in the kitchen, as we worked together to prepare dinner, I was struck by the way Greg's presence transformed a simple task into a shared moment of contentment. His hands moved with a quiet dexterity as he chopped vegetables, and every now and then, he would pause, smiling as he sampled a freshly cut piece of cucumber. His spontaneous grin was infectious, drawing a laugh from me. "Look at you," I teased, half in awe, "you're spoiling me today." He winked playfully, replying with sincerity, "You do so much for everyone else, Aunt Maria. It's time someone cared for you too." It wasn't just the act of cooking or the routine of tidying up that warmed my heart, it was the constancy of his thoughtfulness. He brewed tea in the early morning hours, his quiet manner of noticing even the smallest details around the house, and the way his laughter filled the rooms, easing long-held burdens. Even though his gestures were light-hearted, they spoke volumes. In those subtle, caring touches and smiles lay a deep-rooted desire to bring comfort and joy where it had been missing for so long. A shared confession. One quiet evening, as the soft hum of the ceiling fan blended with the gentle chirp of crickets outside, I found myself immersed in a book on the living room couch. Suddenly, Greg appeared at my side with his characteristic carefree manner. Without thinking, he casually draped his arm over my shoulder. I felt an unexpected warmth, a reminder of how profoundly his presence stirred something inside me. "Is it a love story?" he asked in a teasing tone, one that carried a note of curiosity. I chuckled, a bit embarrassed by the sudden intimacy of the moment. "It's none of your business," I retorted lightly, my cheeks warming as his gentle gaze held mine. He laughed, a rich, heartfelt sound that made the moment feel both light and charged. As he shifted closer, his hand brushed softly against my arm. The contact sent a shiver through me, a jolt of mixed emotions that I found hard to dismiss. I quickly rose, pretending to adjust the curtains, my heart pounding in response. "You're too restless," I mumbled in faux irritation. "You love it," came his mischievous reply, playful and knowing, accompanied by that familiar grin that could make even the heaviest heart feel buoyant. I turned away, trying to regain my composure, yet the impression of his caressing touch lingered in my thoughts. It wasn't just his playful banter, it was the way he made me feel seen and alive. With every subtle gesture, every glance that spoke a silent language of care, I found my long-dormant sense of excitement rekindled. Days passed, and though no grand declarations were made, the transformation in our shared moments was unmistakable. His playful touches, and the genuine warmth of his concern, filled the quiet spaces of my home and the crevices of my heart that I had long resigned to silence. I began to recognize in him a mirror of my own desires. An unspoken longing for a life that embraced vulnerability, the beauty of connection, and the courage to accept care in return. A night of unspoken promises. Late one night, the house unusually calm as I was alone in the kitchen tidying up, I heard soft footsteps behind me. I turned and saw Greg standing there, his presence easing the loneliness of the darkened rooms. There, with only the whisper of the night as our witness, we shared a moment of unspoken understanding. His eyes met mine with an intensity that promised that while our lives might have been paved with heartaches and guarded moments, there was an undeniable truth remaining, the power of caring for one another. In that tender silence, it became clear that perhaps we both yearned for a new beginning, a chance to rediscover the simple, essential beauty of being true to oneself. Without a word, Greg stepped closer, offering the silent comfort of his presence. I could sense the layers of his story, of dreams postponed and expectations unfulfilled, melding with the warmth of my own experiences. And for just one precious moment, time slowed down, the past and future merging into the here and now. I knew, deep in my heart, that this was more than a brief respite from the chaos of life. It was a quiet promise that sometimes, amidst the trials of everyday existence, there is a sanctuary, a place where you can let down your guard, where small gestures, soft laughter, and the gentle understanding of another can renew the spirit. In those shared hours, I discovered that true care does not always come in bold declarations. It often lies in the minutiae of everyday life, in the warmth of a hand on your shoulder, in a whispered reassurance, and in the silent companionship of two souls who have learned to honor the delicate balance between giving and receiving love. I watched as the night deepened, and the garden outside whispered secrets to the stars. In that comforting darkness, I felt a subtle shift, a renewal of hope that perhaps it was time to embrace life's unexpected chapters, to let new light seep into the quiet corners of an old heart. The weekend had revealed much more than I had anticipated. It had unveiled the possibility of healing, of opening up to the care we so often hesitate to accept. And as the morning light began to brush away the remnants of the night, I silently vowed that the days to come would be filled with the kind of gentle transformations that only genuine, heartfelt connection can inspire. Unspoken longings. In the days that followed, the effect of Greg's presence became undeniable. His gentle smiles, his thoughtful glances, and the quiet way he expressed concern awakened feelings in me that I had long forgotten. It was more than his kind words or the comfort of his presence, It was the way he made me feel vibrantly alive, as though a part of me had been waiting patiently to be rediscovered. I found myself anticipating every shared moment, the warmth of his hugs, his light-hearted teasing, and the closeness in our company that stirred a deep, unexpected longing. Late one calm night, when the house was quiet save for the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional chirp of crickets outdoors, I was alone in the kitchen. I was carefully putting away the dishes after dinner when I sensed a presence behind me. I turned slowly and found Greg standing there. The soft, muted light revealed the quiet confidence in his posture. His expression was open and gentle, and his eyes held a silent question. It was as though, even in the stillness, he was reaching out for connection. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly, his tone softer than ever, more vulnerable than his usual exuberant self. I managed a small smile, though I knew my heart was racing. "Not really," I replied, my voice nearly a whisper. Yet the weight of his attentive gaze made me feel that my unspoken thoughts and worries were laid bare. Taking a deliberate step closer, Greg rested lightly against the kitchen counter. His posture was calm, but his eyes searched mine, urging me to share what I could not speak aloud. "You've been quiet today," he observed gently. "Is everything all right?" I nodded, even as my heart whispered a different story, a tension between us that had grown more palpable over time. There was a closeness in that moment, a shared silence heavy with things left unsaid, that tied us together. After a brief pause, he broke the silence, his voice soft and almost reverent. "You know, Aunt Maria," he began, his words lingering in the air like a confession, "I have always admired you. Your strength, your kindness, you are the most remarkable person I have ever known." His declaration sent a ripple of surprise through me, and my heart pounded as I struggled to grasp the honesty in his words. "Greg, please," I murmured, trying to steady my voice, even though the truth stirred something deep within me that I had long thought dormant. Before I could express any further hesitation, Greg stepped forward, his gentle touch trailing through a stray lock of hair as if offering permission for my feelings to surface. The contact was subtle yet filled with meaning, igniting a spark I could neither ignore nor fully understand. Time seemed to slow as we stood there, the quiet of the room enveloping us. I opened my mouth to voice my conflicted thoughts, one moment clashing with the other, but no words came. Instead, every heartbeat and every soft look between us spoke volumes. In that suspended space, our shared unspoken desires and the care we had nurtured over the weekend merged into a quiet promise, a mutual understanding that something profound was unfolding. After what felt like an eternity, I gently stepped back, needing to reclaim a semblance of my usual calm, even as my heart throbbed with new sensations. "Good night," I managed, my voice trembling with the weight of the moment, while inside I acknowledged that something delicate and transformative was building between us. Later, seeking relief from the charged emotions of the night, I prepared to take a cool shower. In the quiet sanctuary of my room, with soft sunlight filtering through the window and painting gentle patterns on the walls, I found a brief peace. I had just removed my clothes and wrapped myself in a soft white towel when I suddenly recalled that my phone was still resting on the coffee table in the living room. It was not urgent, its ring had become a gentle background hum in the evening, but as I made my way toward the bathroom, I heard the deliberate sound of footsteps outside my door. There was a soft knock. Before I could fully react, the door creaked open, and there stood Greg. In his hand he held my phone, and for a split second, our eyes met. The brief look of surprise on his face softened into concern as he remarked, "Your phone's been ringing." His voice trailed off as he took in the scene, my damp hair, the soft glow of the room, and the quiet vulnerability I had inadvertently displayed. Time seemed to freeze as I stood there, my pulse quickening and my mind swirling with conflicting feelings. I could sense that, just as before, our connection was treading on the threshold of something significant. In that moment, no words were required to express the myriad of emotions pulsing between us. An unspoken promise, a shared longing for understanding and care, emerging slowly amidst the hush of the night. Even though the path ahead was uncertain and the emotions running high, I understood that both Greg and I had reached a juncture where the past and our guarded hopes could finally meet. In the soft collision of two souls, the silence carried both the weight of what was lost and the tender possibility of what might be rediscovered. And so, with the world outside continuing its quiet rhythm, we stood at the threshold of an uncharted journey, a delicate dance of healing, understanding, and an openness to a future replete with hope. A moment of overwhelming truth. In that quiet room, once spacious and welcoming, the very air seemed to grow heavy with unspoken emotion. My heart pounded as I whispered, "Greg," my voice trembling with a mix of wonder and apprehension. Before I could gather my scattered thoughts, his movement was swift yet deliberate. In an instant, he stood before me, his warm hand gently cupping my face. His touch was firm yet caring, and as his eyes locked onto mine, I felt a shiver race through me. In his gaze was a silent question, a search for a deeper understanding, a yearning for connection that had long lain dormant. "Aunt Maria, I can no longer keep what I feel hidden," he murmured, his tone earnest and raw with emotion. The word struck me like a current, stirring feelings deep within. In that fragile moment, the space between us seemed to vanish. Though part of me recoiled at the intensity of what was unfolding, I also recognized the profound significance of his confession. It was as if the years of quiet separation from love and vulnerability had converged in one powerful act of truth. Even as he moved closer, our shared silence spoke louder than words. I felt the room slowly tighten around us, every detail, the soft glow of the evening light, the gentle hum of the world outside, becoming part of this intimate interlude. His eyes, earnest and searching, invited me to step beyond old restraints and long-held fears. I could sense that he, too, was caught between conflicting emotions, a blend of care and a desire to express what had been hidden for far too long. The atmosphere was charged not by physical acts, but by the power of our mutual recognition. Here were two souls who had found solace in each other's company, an unexpected bond that transcended conventional boundaries. My voice, barely audible, broke the hush, "Greg, but even as I started, he gently placed his hand over mine, his silent affirmation urging me to embrace this shared vulnerability. For a heartbeat, time itself seemed to suspend. We stood together in a delicate balance, each tender expression and subtle glance weaving a tapestry of hope and newfound understanding. The intensity of our closeness was not defined by any explicit act, it was the quiet, all-encompassing power of being seen and accepted in our most genuine state. The soft afternoon sunlight filtering through the window lent a golden glow that bathed us in warmth, a warmth that both comforted and intensified the moment. His next words, spoken with both tenderness and a note of earnest conviction, revealed the depth of his heart. "Aunt Maria, I have longed for a moment like this, a moment when the truth of our feelings could shine without reservation. I care for you in ways that defy simple explanation." In that confession, I recognized the courage it took for him to share what had been carefully guarded for so long. His concern was evident, as he continued, "I know these emotions may seem overwhelming, and I am aware of the challenges they bring. Yet, I cannot ignore the light you have brought into my life, the way you remind me of everything that is precious and true." I searched his eyes, feeling a stirring of hope mixed with a cautious awareness of the boundaries that life and time had set around us. Deep within, I knew that embracing this emotional openness meant acknowledging both our connection and the complexities it carried. "Greg, there is a tenderness in the way you share your heart, a care that has reawakened parts of me I thought had faded," I replied softly. "I, too, have felt the spark of something that reminds me of the beauty of living fully, despite past sorrows." Our conversation, imbued with heartfelt honesty and quiet reflection, slowly unfolded as the evening deepened. The room, though small, seemed to cradle our emotions gently as we spoke of memories, hopes, and the delicate process of healing after loss. Every shared word became a brick on the bridge leading us from guarded isolation to a place where we could cherish even the simplest connections. As the hours passed, the intimacy between us was defined by a mutual promise, a promise to honor our inner truths without forcing any step that might cause us regret. The soft cadence of our conversation affirmed that while the journey ahead might be complicated, it was also a path of rediscovery and gentle renewal. The golden rays of the waning sun traced patterns across the floor, mirroring the intricate ways our lives were becoming intertwined. At length, as the quiet hum of the evening gave way to the subdued murmur of a new night, Greg's voice lowered to a careful inquiry, "Are you okay?" In that single question lay all the care, concern, and delicate hope we had built together. It was a moment of reflection, a gentle pause that allowed us both to consider our vulnerability with courage and compassion. I met his gaze steadily, acknowledging not just the depth of the feelings we had shared, but also the wisdom that sometimes the brightest light comes from embracing even the most challenging truths. In that tender, transformative exchange, we both realized that true connection is a rare gift, a sanctuary in which hearts, however guarded, can rediscover their capacity for love, care, and the quiet brilliance of understanding. The path ahead was uncertain, yet for that moment, we promised ourselves to hold on to the solace of our shared humanity. A promise that in the rhythm of life, no truth, however difficult, ever goes unnoticed. A quiet shift. His voice was soft, filled with a tenderness I hadn't expected. As his eyes met mine, there was something searching in them. Not pressure, not judgment, just an earnest desire to understand. He looked for any sign of hesitation, like he could feel the storm of emotions I was trying to suppress. "I don't know," I whispered, the honesty raw in my voice. "But I don't regret anything, not at all." Greg smiled, and it was the kind of smile that warmed a room, the kind that said, "I hear you." He reached up and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture so gentle, so familiar, it nearly undid me. "Neither do I," he said simply, but his words carried more than they revealed. There was a quiet promise nestled in them, of trust, of care, of something deeper than either of us could name. For a while, we sat in silence. Not awkward, not tense, just quiet. As if the world outside had ceased to exist. The air felt suspended in that moment, as if time dared not move too quickly and break the stillness we'd found. But slowly, reality began to stir. The golden light of the afternoon faded into dusk, and with it came the creeping weight of questions unspoken. As night fell, so did the calm. I felt it slowly dissolve, like sand slipping through my fingers. Later, I found myself alone in the garden. The breeze was cool against my skin, brushing past me with the scent of earth and fresh blooms. I sat on the edge of the stone bench, staring out into the darkening sky, my thoughts unraveling. What did this mean? What had we done? Had we crossed something sacred? The uncertainty was a weight on my chest. I was afraid, not of him, not of judgment, but of what this would mean for the life I'd built. For the people who trusted me. For the version of myself I thought I understood. He found me there. Quietly. Like a calming wind pushing away a storm. He didn't say anything at first, just stood nearby, giving me space. That was who he was, steady, patient. But his presence stirred something deep in me that I didn't want to name. "Aunt Maria," Greg finally said, his voice steady, though there was something vulnerable beneath it. "I know this is complicated. But I don't regret any of it. And I don't want it to end like this, not in silence." His words echoed in my heart, stirring feelings I had tried to bury. I turned toward him slowly, and in that moment, I felt everything, grief, confusion, affection, fear, and somewhere in the midst of it all, a longing for peace. "Greg," I began, my voice shaking, "this isn't just complicated. It's overwhelming. I've lived my life within lines, within roles. This, what we're feeling, it doesn't belong there." He nodded, not in defeat, but in understanding. "I know," he said. "But feelings don't follow rules. And sometimes, maybe we just need to be honest about them, even if we don't act on them." There was a stillness after that. The kind of stillness that comes after a storm. A shared understanding passed between us, not as people caught in a moment, but as two souls who had touched something true, something difficult and beautiful and real. He sat beside me, not too close, just enough to remind me that I wasn't alone. His hand brushed mine briefly, light, respectful, and then rested between us. "Maybe this is just a moment," I said, looking out at the stars just beginning to blink into view. "Maybe it's a mirror, showing us what's missing in our lives. What we need to heal." Greg took a breath, deep and full. "And maybe that's enough." I looked at him then, and for the first time I didn't see the questions or the fears. I saw someone who reminded me of something I had forgotten, a truth I had buried beneath years of duty, expectation, and silence. That I was still alive. Still growing. Still capable of being moved. We sat like that for a long time, saying nothing more. And in the hush of the garden, beneath the quiet stars, I let go of the shame, the guilt, the noise, and held on to the only thing that mattered, the honesty between us. It wasn't romance. It wasn't impulse. It was something deeper. Something sacred. A quiet transformation. That moment, when his lips met mine, was not an explosion of passion but a quiet affirmation of a truth we had both carried in silence. He kissed me as though I were the only person who existed at that instant, the sole beacon of meaning in a world suddenly filled with light. When we finally pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed, I saw the intensity in his gaze, a look so deep that it set my heart racing even faster. His eyes held an unspoken promise of care and commitment, a promise that everything had irrevocably changed. From that day forward, there was no going back to the way things once were. We began to steal away quiet, private moments. Time slowed down around us whenever we were together. Whether we were cooking side by side in the kitchen, where our shared laughter filled the space between clinks of silverware, or taking slow, peaceful walks through the garden as the early sun painted the dew in golden hues, every moment became a treasured jewel in an otherwise ordinary world. The chaos of everyday life faded, the world outside no longer mattered. Greg was thoughtful in every way. Always attentive, he found endless ways, both grand and subtle, to show me how much I meant to him. He surprised me with wildflowers plucked from the garden, bright splashes of color against the soft, quiet backdrop of our lives. He left small handwritten notes in unexpected places, folded gently on the kitchen counter, tucked between the pages of a well-loved book, each note arriving precisely when I needed it most. And whenever we found ourselves alone, his hand was never far from mine. His fingers would interlace with mine, as if he were holding on to something precious he never wanted to let go of. One serene evening under a star-filled sky, Greg turned to me with an expression both serious and contemplative. Though the cool night air swept around us, his mere presence filled me with a warmth that belied the chill. His voice broke the quiet, steady, and resolute. "I want you to know something," he said softly, his tone rippling with raw emotion. "I'm not going anywhere. Whatever challenges we may face, I'm here. I'm with you." The sincerity of his words hit me like a wave, and tears sprang to my eyes as the depth of his promise sank deep into my heart. I reached for his hand, gripping it tightly as if to ensure that the moment was real. "Greg, you brought so much light into my life," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what I'd do without you." He smiled then, a gentle, reassuring smile, and replied, "You'll never have to find out." Pulling me into a warm embrace, he held me close, and in that moment, wrapped in the safety of his arms, I knew that we were in this together. No matter what the future might hold, our bond was forged in honesty and nurtured by our willingness to share our truest selves. In time, our love blossomed into something deeply personal, a beautiful, secret treasure we both cherished. Every day, we understood that the world around us might never fully comprehend the depth of what we shared. And yet, that did not matter. What mattered most was the solace we found in each other's company, the unspoken comfort of knowing that we were never truly alone. Our hearts, once weighed down by the complexities of past hurts and life's relentless pressures, felt lighter with every gentle embrace, every soft smile. Greg had brought me back to life, igniting a spark I had thought long extinguished. For the first time in many years, I allowed myself to hope again, to believe in the possibility of happiness, and in his embrace, I discovered a love that was tender yet fierce, a love that was both real and entirely our own. We nurtured this love carefully, like a delicate flower hidden away from a harsh world, a love that beat to its own steady rhythm and pulsed with quiet assurance. It was not a love defined by grand gestures or blinding passion but by moments of shared silence, gentle touches, and an enduring connection that transformed even the smallest shared experiences into something magical. As we grew together, we vowed to protect this sacred bond from the judgments of the outside world. We understood that our love might seem mysterious or difficult to explain to others, but it was ours to cherish and safeguard. With every sunrise and every tender farewell at dusk, we renewed our silent promise, to face tomorrow hand in hand, with hearts open and souls intertwined. Thank you for following our story. If this journey of transformation and hope has touched your heart, please consider subscribing for more stories that celebrate the beauty of vulnerability and connection. Your support means the world to us. It helps keep this light burning, one gentle moment at a time.